everyone. Welcome to today's workshop. We will wait for 1 or 2 minutes for other participants to join us. But in the meantime, feel free to introduce yourself through the chat box. You can type your name, your organization, and where you are joining us from today. Thank you. Welcome, Soraya. Welcome, Philippe, joining from the Dominican Republic and from Quebec. Amina joining from Bosnia and Herzegovina. So while waiting for others to introduce themselves in the chat box and also other colleagues to join us, I suggest that we start. So my name is Alexandra Atalla, and I'm here on behalf of UNDP's Food and Agricultural Commodity Systems community, known as the FACS community. And today's workshop is on rewiring, called Rewiring for Uncertainty, Understanding the Brain to Navigate Change. As the title says it will tackle the topic of uncertainty. And hopefully by the end of this workshop, you will be able to understand better how our cognitive processes can help us engage more skillfully with change and uncertainty. So this workshop is constituted of 2 modules. So today is our first session, and we will have another session on Thursday. It will be a workshop that on one hand has some theory, but there will be also some practice involved. And by saying that, I'm also encouraging all of you who are here, if you're able to put on your cameras. We will have also some breakout rooms. So in the breakout room exercise, I also encourage everyone to introduce themselves to their peers. So this way you can break a bit the ice and you can, have more meaningful discussions. So with this, I would like to introduce Ben Elers. Ben Elers is the founder of the Brain Innovation Project. He will be leading the workshop. And for some of you already know Ben, he has worked with UNDP for several years now and has delivered multiple workshops which were related to innovation, resilience, this one on uncertainty, all rooted and building on neuroscience and cognitive approaches. Ben is also a coach, and many of you know him through the personal coaching program as well that we have as part of the FACS community. And I would kindly just ask colleagues to mute themselves. So, okay. I have muted. If you can, if you're joining us, please make sure that you're muted. And if you're able, please, yes, turn on your camera. On this way, we can also see you. So with this, over to you, Ben. And thank you all for joining us today.
Thanks, Alexandra. I'm sorry you muted somebody right at the beginning when, we want to hear people's voices. But anyway, it's lovely to be with you and to talk about uncertainty, the brain, and good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. To start off with, I would just like to lower your expectations a little bit on an important topic. That is, we only have 4 hours together overall, even though it's two modules, which sounds like a lot, but it's less than a morning, right? Or it's a morning's work or an afternoon's work. And it's a pretty complex topic. And so we're only going to be able to scratch the surface in many ways. And also you're all from diverse countries, diverse issues, so we don't necessarily have one common theme that we're going to talk about. And so we'll have to talk about uncertainty in a general way. That was the lowering of your expectations. And now the raising of your expectations, right? Um, I can't think of anything more important as a topic, right? Not just in terms of the current uncertainty we might be facing and a lot of us feel at the moment, but also, as we'll explore, how we relate to uncertainty is actually how we relate to life, right? That we will explore that in the basic thesis of the workshop is that life is dealing with uncertainty, right? So it's not just about uncertain times. It's very much about who we are, how we interact with the world, um, and also, as we will see, it's not just about individuals, but actually, it's also about how organizations and societies deal with uncertainty. So it really is a phenomenally important topic, both for our own individual well-being, but also professionally and societally, as to how we deal with uncertainty. And also, another thing to raise your expectations. I know I'm supposed to dampen expectations at the beginning, but I genuinely think this is a critical topic. We're going to be exploring some pretty cutting edge thinking about this. Right? I would love to say it was my thinking, but it's not. Right? This is based on some real giants of neuroscience and modern day philosophy. It's really quite profound stuff in many ways. So, as Alexander mentioned, we're going to be getting into some breakout groups fairly early on. But before we do that, I just want to provide an overview as to what we're doing in this workshop, how it all fits together. And that's going to take about 15-20 minutes or so because I do want to set the stage at the beginning. And one last thing, as those of you who have been in workshops with me before, I get overly excited about some of this stuff, and I can end up talking too quickly or too obscurely. And please do just jump in with any comments, questions, suggestions. You don't have to wait until the end or until I say, "Are there any questions?" If something doesn't make sense, shout. Right? That's good. And one last thing on the introduction. There are many things which I hope will resonate with you, and you will actually feel, yeah, I kind of know this. That's great. That's the way it should be. But also, there are things that you probably are not so familiar with unless you spend your life studying this kind of things. So also focus on what you don't know. Rather than just incorporating new stuff into what you do know, open up to things which you don't know. And one last request again, which just to echo Alexander again, if you're able to put your cameras on, it really, really, really does help. All right. If you, I understand that you might be having to do other things at the same time, or you're in your pajamas or whatever. But do please put your cameras on if you possibly can, because it makes a difference to the atmosphere. It helps me to make this more interactive, and people feel part of this workshop as opposed to just participants. Yeah. As I say, jump in. Any questions? Right. So just oh dear, where am I? I'm showing the wrong part. Here, where we are. So as I said, I'm just going to do a brief overview, 10-15 minutes about what we're talking about, just to try and set the scene. So it's two modules. The first one, we're going to be talking about uncertainty. It's not just a little thing that we have to deal with, or you know how business want to manage uncertainty and reduce uncertainty. I literally saying it's the oxygen of life, right? And how we deal with this, therefore, is pretty consequential. And you know the way that this workshop was framed was very much about a lot of people are, including myself, often feeling overwhelmed by uncertainty in many ways. And in the second module on Thursday, we're going to be getting more into, well, what can we actually do with it? What can we actually do about it? So today it's practical, but it's also kind of scene setting. And on Thursday, it's much more the individual exercises. Some of you have been through this, and I hope you'll find these kind of exercises. They're fun as well as surprising, quite often. We're mainly talking about the individual in terms of uncertainty, right? We're not one team, we're not one organization, we're not in one country, we're not in one project, we're diverse people. And so we're talking more about individuals. But actually, what we're talking about today is entirely scalable from individuals to communities to organizations to teams. Okay, it's a theory of everything, and so in terms of uncertainty. Um, in fact, it actually even goes down even deeper than this, even to all, as well, the basis of it actually goes down to all living organisms. But we're not we're going to focus on people, right, in this workshop. Um, but we're going to be talking more about individuals. As I say, we only have 4 hours together. Okay. The brain. Just give you a minute just to read these things yourself. I mean, if you think the brain is kind of interesting but not important, I would invite you to think again, right? Or to reflect on that. It's your brain which is paying attention to all of this stuff. It's your brain which can turn complex thoughts into tongue movements and breathing and make words, right? I mean, quite impressive stuff. It's your brain which can see things. It's your brain which is understanding this. This is all your brain. Not for nothing is it said, sitting on the top of your shoulders is the most complex object in the known universe. right? And just to give just a tiny minute idea of the scale of it, um, it all of within our brains, you're probably familiar with this, like with synapses, the parts which in between join neurons. We have about 86 to 100 billion neurons, and all joined up to about 10,000 each. And if you count the number of gaps, the joints between the neurons, that's where all the memories and the action actually happens, is in the connections between things. If you counted one per second, right, in your brain, it would take you at least 3 million years without sleeping, right? This is all yours to keep, right? It really is miraculous, astonishing stuff. Now, uncertainty. Um, and this astonishing stuff is our cutting edge science, is suggesting that it's not that uncertainty isn't just an interesting thing, but the way the brain works or engages with uncertainty is its fundamental operating principle, right? And your personality and your intellect and your skills and whatever does not exist apart from outside of your brain. All right. And so actually what it's saying is that a whole way of living and making sense of the world is actually about trying to minimize the gap or the uncertainty between our existing viewpoints or models of the world and the world itself. Right? And that's the same as saying that we are trying to to maximize our certainty. Right? If we're trying to minimize our uncertainty between our beliefs and the way we operate and the world itself, what it means is we're trying to maximize our certainty of the world. Nothing about accuracy here. It says certainty. Why might we want to improve our certainty? Why would we want to do that? I mean, why would that be our fundamental operating principle? And it's a pretty key. I mean, this is a big claim that's being made here, huh? I mean, do shout out. Just unmute yourself and say if you have anything. Well, we would want to reduce to reduce our uncertainty and therefore increase our certainty, because we have to live in the world and we have to know what's happening in the world. So we have to be able to react to the world, right? I mean, it's as simple as that, right? We need to be sure that our model of the world is relevant, not accurate, but relevant to our survival. I see there's a couple of things in the chat. I'm still not sure how you look at chat with while presenting, but anyway, I'm sure there's a way of doing it. Oh, will we mention the interaction with our other brains, our gut, our heart? Yeah, we'll get into that more. We can get into that more in module 2, right? We can get into that more in module 2. It's an excellent question, right? It's a very fundamental question, but today we're talking about this brain, but we will get onto that, because as you'll see, particularly in session number 2, the fundamental operating principle is actually the brain is part of a bigger system. All right. So, but we'll get to that next on Thursday. So that's the fundamental operating principle. And just to talk about Carl Friston, the Einstein of our age, I mean, people really believe that his insights are that important, right? In terms of explaining about how we work. And just for if anybody's interested in this, I will send just a profile of this guy during the break. I'll post it. He's pretty insane as well. He's quite he's one of those nutty professor kind of type things. He's a funny guy, right? But anyway, and just for this basic model of Carl Friston, it's both highly scientific and technical, right? And there's also a version which is much more practical day to day, kind of like about how do you translate it into real life. But his ideas are basically cover all of this, and we're focusing. You'll be glad to know more on this, right? Rather than this. Apart from anything else, I don't claim for a minute to be able to understand all these equations. All right. Anyway, moving on. So that's what module one's going to be doing. We're going to be going into what does this big claim actually mean, right? I can't just state that and then expect you to believe it and go, oh yeah, okay, we're just trying to minimize uncertainty. We need to dig deep into that, okay? And that's what we will do. Number two, uncertainty. Is it nutrients or poison, right? I mean, what we're going to be exploring in this, we will get very much into, this question about other brains and guts and heart and whatever. Actually, we get into this here because curiosity is also about a state of how we're feeling and our bodies and all of this stuff. But essentially, what we're looking at in terms of our reaction to uncertainty, it tends to go into either anxiety, where we feel fear, overwhelm, right, draining, or it's a source of exploration and excitement. And there are these two basic kind of responses we have to it. And in module two, we're obviously going to be trying to reframe anxiety, like uncertainty in this camp, right? Because when it's anxiety, many of you are familiar with this, right? When uncertainty is seen as a threat, most of us are familiar with the fight or flight response. Are you familiar with this, people? Yeah. Less well known the other F's, right? In this, fawn meaning bow down, seek approval from those. All right, the fight or flight, it rhymes, it's nice, okay? But actually, that there's also fawn. You can see that, right? And but here's another one which is often not understood: freeze. Right? Which means you play dead. Like most animals don't eat dead things unless they kill them, right? Unless you're a vulture, right? And so freezing in the face of threat is also a strategy from nature. Of these four, I think this is the most dangerous. This is where overwhelm is. Right? You might not like fighting or flighting or fawning, but at least you're doing something. There's some sense of agency of your own action there. Whether it's the right action or not is questionable, right? But freezing is when stuff starts getting really bad. Yeah, when we just don't know what to do and we don't see ourselves in the situation, we become helpless, right? And that's bad for all of us. Yeah. And so that's kind of what we're going to be doing in the sense in module two is how do we get out of that, if that's what you're feeling. Okay. Is this making sense so far? So far? Don't know. You've all got your cameras off, so I can't see. Oh, Alison, it makes sense. Good, good, good. Thank you, Alison, for um anyway. But just briefly, I just want to give you an overview, very brief overview of the main characteristics of what we're meaning by all of this, because it's still quite theoretical. So a brief overview as to where we're going in the workshop. We're talking about life here, right? Living, right? This is what we're doing. If we don't agree on anything else, I hope we can all agree that we're alive, all right? That we're living, breathing human beings here and now. Staying alive, whether it's for humans or squirrels or for trees or for whatever, right, involves two things, basically, right? It involves good internal housekeeping, so you have to maintain the structure and the functioning of your thing, right? Body, branch, tree, whatever, and good external relations, right? You have to be able to extract energy, resources, avoid being eaten, etc., etc. Yeah, I mean it's just a basic thing of life, right? That of all living systems. These are the two things which have to happen. Otherwise, if you dissipate, then you don't exist anymore. Is this making sense, or you're like, what? Yeah, okay, okay. So good internal housekeeping and good external relations. You have to take care of yourself and you have to be able to interact with the world. But these two things, they're separate, but they're not, right? You have to be able to do both. It's not just enough just to take care of yourself. You have to be able to interact with the world. And it's not enough to interact with the world without taking care of yourself. It's entirely interdependent, right? And there's this boundary called your skin between you and the outside world. This is what separates you from the outside world, your skin. But it doesn't necessarily separate you. You could also say it connects you to the outside world, right? But there's this notion of this is me and that is not me. And this will become very, very important for us. Okay? It's not complicated, right? And we exist on that boundary, right, of our interaction with the world. If you think all of this is kind of okay, what's this got to do with uncertainty? We're getting there, right? But it's fundamental. And so in your internal stuff and your external, you have all sorts of prior beliefs about how the world works, right? And they seem so natural to us that we don't think that they really are constructions, but they are, all right? And we have all these prior assumptions about the world. And the person who mentioned about the heart and the stomach brain, that's also part of the assumptions, right? We have it's not just intellectual assumptions, it's assumptions that we as living organisms have about how the world works, are models of the world and the world out there. And uncertainty is the gap between the two, right? Or more or less. And whether we're surfing uncertainty or we're drowning in it is kind of the key thing. This is the art of staying alive, is how we relate between our prior expectations of the world and the world itself. But just a little bit more detail on this. And this we're gonna don't worry if you look at this and you're like, what does this mean? It doesn't matter at this sense. We're gonna spend time on this, right? We're gonna spend most of today unpacking what this actually means. So you've got your internal model of the world. Everything within the boundary of your skin is you, right? And you've got your external world. And you're always making predictions about the world. If I drop something, it's going to fall down. If I drive my car too much, it's going to contribute to climate change. If I am a farmer and I plant a crop with good seeds and I've got a good soil and there's good rainfall, my prediction is that I'm going to have a good crop. Right? We're always making predictions, and that's all we can do. We predict the outside, we predict the consequences of our action, but then we have to test them through data from the world. So my prediction might be that if my world model tells me if I put good seeds into soil, I will predict that I will get a good crop. But if I don't get the data from the world saying, in other words, I see that the crop is failing, all right, then my prediction and the feedback from the world, there's a mismatch. We'll come to this in a minute, and this is key. Now, and so I'm working on this model where I'm predicting, if I'm surfing, I'm predicting the movement of my body will keep me surfing, etc., etc., etc. But I'm also receiving feedback from the world about, okay, this doesn't feel right. This is, okay, I need to change my balance. So we're in this constant circle of learning, adjusting, acting, getting feedback from the world, and learning and acting and predicting. Right? And this we're going to explore in more detail, but this is our fundamental operating model. Okay, and we will go into this. And what's really important, we will get to this later, is we need to bring to every specific context, we need to bring our right internal model to a situation. What I mean is if we're surfing, my brain has a model of what surfing looks like, and it's different to my model of what playing with my cats looks like. All right, I do different actions, I do different things. So you have to bring your right model from your brain to a given situation. All right, if you're a football player and you want to be the score a goal in the World Cup, you probably don't want to be bringing the model of when your science teacher told you how stupid you were, right? When you were 5 years old. You need to be bringing the right configuration of model to a situation. You need to, if you want to stay on the board, you need to be feeling in the right way, right? You have to, if you're feeling threatened or you're concentrating on something else, you're going to fall off. And if you're thinking about the price of coffee in Colombia when you're doing that, in other words, you're not paying attention to the right data, you're going to fall off. And so uncertainty, it's about how we manage this cycle. But we're going to go into this in more detail. Nearly done in terms of this introduction. But uncertainty, we like it in small doses. We pay good money for it in small doses, right? Some people enjoy tying themselves to a rope and jumping off a bridge and bouncing up and down, right, at the end. And that's kind of uncertain, isn't it? That you know that the rope might break and you're bungee jumping. We read books, right? Where's uncertainty? We don't know how it's going to end. We have falling in love. I mean, that's uncertain, right? Where does that go? Right? Rock climbing. I mean, all of these things. So uncertainty, we like it, right? But we want it in manageable doses that we somehow can control, right? We don't want the freezing. We want to be part of that uncertainty. Yeah? It's like uncertain. And here, this uncertainty can have excitement, curiosity, joy, openness. It's the spice of life, right? It's novelty, it's change, all of those good things. So uncertainty can be a very, very, very good thing. Right? But also, there's times when it can be overwhelming. All right. I mean, when there's war or your unemployment, climate change, a lot of people feel uncertain about AI, what's happening. All right. And the difference is, right, in this is it's a threat. It's not something positive, but it's all the same but it's still this that's happening. It's still the same principles, but we're just reacting in very different ways. Right? But there's a but, right? um, some people are very excited by AI. Some people are terrified. I'm talking about the future, artificial intelligence. Some people are terrified by that uncertainty. Other people are like, wow, this is like um, a new dawn of life. Right? Some people hate rock climbing and scared. I am. I would be. I wouldn't do it. All right. Other people love it. As strange as it might seem, a lot of people coming back from the Second World War. I'm British originally, and but a lot of people they say that the Second World War, British soldiers, they say it was the best time of my life. Something about the comrades and the friendship and the whatever. I'm sure we've all heard of people. Fortunately, it's never happened to me, and I hope it's never happened to any of you. We've all heard of people who have got very, very ill. Or have you ever heard of somebody who's then afterwards said it was the best thing that ever happened to me? Right? It helped me reevaluate what's important to me. Right? Most of us have come up with, have met people who say this kind of thing. And if you haven't experienced it yourself, you're like, what? It's hard to get your head around. Love. There's a lot of people who the last thing they want to do is get close to other people, right? And love scares them. So uncertainty, it's in the eye of the beholder. Right? There's nothing in the situation about whether uncertainty is good or bad. It's your relationship to it. Are there any questions before we move into small groups? Does that make any sense? Are you like, what's going on? Not getting the point of it? Is there anybody here? Okay, we've got a couple of people who make sense. Okay, at least I know you're alive. Even that's good, right? So this is what we're going to be talking about for this and the next time. Oh, it's already. Oh, this took much longer than I expected. Wow. Okay. Sorry. We're now going to. If there are any questions, jump in. If not, we're going to divide you into groups of 3 people, and I suggest we do 10 minutes. Okay. All right, 10 minutes. I think so. I've gone on longer than expected. It's already 22, right? And maybe a little bit longer. Maybe we'll do 12, but we can do this. And I like in groups, just discuss a little bit. What does uncertainty mean to you? What are your greatest uncertainties? And how would you like to react to them? Right? And this isn't a test. There's no right or wrong answers. We just want to give you a chance to kind of like to explore this. And nobody's going to be forced to share anything personal if you don't want to. And there will be a chance for feedback in the group, in this group. But you're not gonna. I'm not gonna push you to say reveal something difficult. This is just an opportunity to think about uncertainty. And my two requests is, first of all, please do turn your cameras on when you're in individual when you're in groups with people. It's very difficult for people if you're not in your cameras on. And the second thing I would request is, I know it's difficult for very sociable people, but please try and jump into the conversation and not spend too long introducing yourself and saying, okay, so does anybody want to start and who will who will do this, and I don't want to, and over to you. Just jump into the conversation, right? Because we don't have too long. And just as the chat. There you go. Any questions, or you want to just to get going on that? Okay, fire away, Alexandra, please. Do you want to do the groups? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back. So anybody want to spill the beans on the conversations? Any no, honestly, I don't mean it like that. I mean, seriously, any reflections, anything interesting coming up, anything that anybody's willing to share? Don't feel obliged to.
Maybe I can share a bit what we discussed
Please.
with Claire in our group, and very short that it's in this discussion, it's important to consider where we come from and what is our background in terms also of privileges that we are carrying on for how we're gonna deal with uncertainty. So I think this is an element that will be beneficial.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't quite hear that.
In terms of consider and having in mind the background from which we are coming in terms of origins and family situation, and how this translates in terms of the privileges that we are carrying on.
Okay, interesting. Okay, great.
Well, if I may compliment, just thank you. I was in the group. Just if I can compliment that to make it, I guess, more explicit, is that we both come from countries that we experienced war and hunger since probably before the womb. And so this is very different than being born in England in a privileged house, the way that you deal with stressors and uncertainty can be conditioning even from the womb. So that's and I think it's essential part of this discussion. And in UNDP we have a anti-racism and decoloniality network where we assess many issues, including some related to what we have discussed today, but taking into account the lens of racism and colonialism and the difference between global north and global south. And I think that was missing from the beginning, and that was something we shared in our group. Thank you.
I wholeheartedly agree with both of you on this, and we will come to that. I totally. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? These are important reflections. If I'm not sort of like picking up on it, it's because we will come or touch on this because absolutely.
I can continue. Do you hear me well? Can you hear me well?
Yeah, please.
Okay. In my group, we were discussing different elements. First, one of us was saying that she works with other people, and for her it's very important to develop how do you say it to develop sorry?
Develop trust with
Exactly.
Because she works with people.
Yes, so that was very important to allow people to make progress Another person referred to the aspect of security and how important is this and how to deal with that in the sense of sometimes when you have this strong element of lack of security precisely, you can block yourself from minute one. So what she was doing is basically to not allow that to happen and to be present and to acknowledge what's going on now and not to anticipate the scenarios in the future. So doing that exercise. And another case was actually to acknowledge this concept of uncertainty in the sense of understanding that is quite common in our lives, even if our brain is not made for it, and try to integrate this dimension in our daily lives, understanding that it's more about making observation and not allowing emotions to trigger you or to eat you somehow. Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, and in terms of both the trust and the security, and also, the previously talking about conflict and war, and coming from global south and north. I mean, all of this is connected, and all of this, as we'll see, all of this fits into plays a part in our models of the world. I mean, it becomes fundamental to who we are. Absolutely. Simon, you have your hand up.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more of a trivial or all context related type of approach for less intense situations, for the day-to-day type of uncertainty that could be experienced when there's not such high stakes. In general, you presented the freeze, the fight, flight, freeze type of usual blockages, which tends to ramp up the anxiety that can be attached to uncertainty. And usually when you take the first steps, I think there's a Stoic maxim that says, from Marco, the impediment to action becomes the action. If you're uncertain about how a certain person will react, if you're uncertain about is this channel the right one, or would this option be a better one, being stuck in the middle ground of not deciding is what ramps up the uncertainty and the negative feeling that can be attached to it. So if you actually take the first step, even if you get a negative answer, or this is not the right partner for this project, or this is not the right decision, at least you know where you're standing, and the next steps becomes a little bit more clear. So by actually starting acting on the question, the uncertainty dissipates and clarity arrives slowly but surely.
That would be if Professor Carl Friston was here talking, he would say you've just described active inference exactly. Right, is that your actions are a way of sampling the world and getting feedback from them, so that you can develop a new hypothesis, so that you can do this. And all of these, I'm very aware of the fact. Thank you for that. I'm very aware of the fact that you've sorry, I need glasses these days. Clear and Zdravka, is that? I hope I pronounced it right. I'm very aware of the fact that you brought up some big issues about war and colonialism and these kind of issues, and I want to be very clear that here I'm not trying to trivialize any of this, right? And we will get to this in terms of what it means in terms of the model, but just to be clear, that all of these big things, they they feed into our model of the world and how we see the world, right? And how we experience the world. And these are incorporated in our brain's model of the world, right? And that's where we're going to be moving on to. If there's any other these things, I mean, you obviously had some very rich conversations, and as I say, we have such a limited amount of time, just 4 hours on such a big topic, and these are obviously really important conversations to have. And we're only, these are only limited to 10, 15 minutes or 20 minutes, but these are all big issues. Anything else? Alison, please.
Sure. So one thing I think that was interesting in our conversation was that some things at the global level that have never been in our control and are therefore uncertain, global elections, votes, and political movements, etc., wars. However, they were never they were always uncertain, and yet they seem less certain now, less predictable than some time ago, which makes our world seem less certain. And so that is a change that we discussed has happened in our lifetime. Even 70s, 80s, Cold War, etc., to then 90s, 2000s, let's say 2015 SDGs, Paris Agreement, etc. And then now this incredible uncertainty at the global level makes the control that we have over our own lives and the certainty within our own lives feel less certain. And I think that's where a lot of challenges come to people.
Right, that's a very interesting point, and something that we can actually circle back to at the end of today, because I wonder if a lot of that is just the information which is available. I mean, as you say, I mean, it was, there's been wars and many things going on for a lot of time, and we have the possibility of paying attention to it more, right? We have this stuff, and I'm not saying whether we should or shouldn't pay attention to it. That's not the point. But it clearly, even if there is a war going on, if you don't know anything about it, it's out of sight, out of mind. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but it certainly is what you don't know about doesn't make you uncertain. And I'm not saying uncertainty is a bad thing necessarily, but
I think it was the linkages between certainty, uncertainty, and control or not control, or how much one is in control of in relation to how much one is certain about. Yes.
Yeah. So this notion of control is critical. On that, I suggest we take a 5-minute break, and then we come back and we carry on, and hopefully incorporate some of these ideas as to where we're going. So if we take 5 minutes, and Alexandra says, please stay on Zoom during the break. Please don't go off, and we'll start at exactly 5 minutes at 10 past. See you soon, hopefully. I have posted in the chat a link to a document or a PDF about Carl Friston, the guy whose work this is based on. Just if anybody's interested, it's quite entertaining. Anyway, it's worth a read, and it shows how a lot of this work actually goes quite a lot deeper than we, as I say, as I keep on emphasizing, we're touching on the surface here. Anyway, following on from these rich conversations, I would just like to go on a little bit and take this a little bit further. And this is a story not just of uncertainty, actually, but how we make sense of the world. And again, this is really quite, this is really quite new, cutting edge, quite revolutionary ways of thinking about things, right? models, expectations, and prediction errors. Is anybody familiar with any of this stuff? Predictive processing, like active inference, this kind of thing, predictive brains. Does this ring any bells with people? Not really. Okay. A question. How would you know if you had a stomach ache? Go on, bear with me, humiliate me, or just stay with me. Let me ask the silly questions just for a minute. How would you know?
You feel pain.
You feel pain, yeah. You don't read it in a book, all right? How would you know if you hit a tennis ball? And how would you actually know that you'd hit a tennis ball?
The ball would go away from you.
How would you know? Who said that? Sorry, I didn't see the thing.
Sorry, it's Caroline.
Okay. How would you know the ball was going away from you?
You feel some resistance.
You'd see it. Okay. What else might you know about how you hit the tennis ball?
You hear it hit
You
your
hear it.
tennis racket.
You feel it, right?
You feel the resistance of the ball.
Sorry?
You feel the resistance.
You feel the resistance. Your brain is stuck in a dark place called your skull, all right? And it's silent in there. It doesn't have access to the world, all right? Although we experience the world directly, we rely on, to hit the tennis ball, something as simple as that. We rely on the pressure, the vibrations in our arm, the seeing it, the hearing, right? We do not have access, our brains do not have access to the world directly, right? And this gets, what we see, as many of you, I'm sure you know, actually what the pictures which come into our heads are actually upside down, and they have to get turned around, right, in our heads, and it gets converted into electrical signals, right? And our brain says, wow, I've hit a tennis ball. It's pretty remarkable stuff, right? Similarly, a stomach ache, we have our nervous systems, right? Somebody mentioned about the stomach, right? I mean, very clearly the stomach is related to our nervous system. But also our blood sugar levels, right? All of this stuff, our brain, it doesn't experience the thing directly. It experiences signals about things, and it has to infer from these signals what's going on. And it sounds so weird to us. Of course, I know I hit the tennis ball, but if you think about how you know you hit the tennis ball, it's only through your sensory perception, right? Which again is translated into electrical signals. And so, if you think about it, we make sense of the world, not directly. We don't have access to the world. We have access to our sensory data from the world, right? And also from our bodies, we have access to hormones, chemicals, electrical signals. And remember, the art of life is good housekeeping, good external relations. And our brains don't have access to these things. They have signals, right, which they then have to put together, and they give you an integrated experience. Right? And we take it so for granted that our experience is how it is. It's not. Our experience is constructed by the signals that we receive. Right? And what happens is, from this, we build models of the way the world works, assumptions about what's going on out there in the world and what's going on. Right? Our brains do. And this comes from our deep biological drivers, so the need to eat, the need to breathe, the need to digest food, the need for our heart to beat, etc., right? From our biology, and we'll come to that in module 2. This is fundamental, our biology, right? We can't escape it, right? And this is why we get stuck in our heads is so often is we ignore our biology, right? And through our lived experience. And that lived experience involves our personal experience, but also our cultural experience, of whether we face war or not, or hunger, but also day-to-day experiences, whether whether we're in loving relationships or not, or whether I mean, it all comes together and we all have these totally unique models. And we're so convinced that this is how the world is, right? It's not. This is our models of the world that we experience. Right? We don't see the world as it is. We experience our models. And in this, remember again, we've talked about this internal and this external. And again, I talked about whether it's an individual, a community, an organization, right? This separation between the internal and the external. Right? So we could be doing this workshop with a team or an organization. It'd be a similar kind of process. It's just slightly different conversations. All things which are somehow separated from the world because my skin defines the difference or the connection between me and the outside. A community will decide it has a separation between something which isn't part of the community and something which is part of the community. Of course, it's a fluid boundary, but there's always some. You remember your Venn diagrams from school, right? And everything has a model about how the world works. Organizations do, people do. And this raises from, do you believe in God or not? Right? To gravity, things fall down, not up. Right? It's from everything is our belief, our assumption about the world. Because remember, our brains are stuck behind in our skulls. Right? And so we have these incredibly complex, it's phenomenal, right? It's truly amazing. That's why it's said about the most complex object in the known universe on our shoulders, right? Is creating these models of the world and our understanding of the world. And it goes from big things which are big and contextual and difficult to change and high level identities, culture, through to if I'm hungry and if I eat, it will satisfy my hunger. All of this is it's your assumptions, your beliefs about how the world works, right? It's not your intellectual beliefs. It's the total beliefs of you, the whole being, right? It has these prior beliefs about how the world works. At a very simple level, you don't have to get up every morning when you open the door and you reach for the door handle. You have to go, what's this? Right? You have a model of how doors work. Right? And you come up and your deep-seated beliefs, or deep but also quite trivial beliefs, right? And you have everything in between. It comes up with specific predictions. So, for example, let's say your prior belief is if you have good soil quality, good rain, good seeds, that's your belief about how the world works. And so your prediction would be, if I plant the seeds, look after the stuff, do the weeding, the rainfalls, my specific prediction is, I will have a good crop. Right? At a very high level, if you believe in if you're religious and you believe in an afterlife, right? That's your belief about the world, right? About how the world or life works. Your prediction will be, well, I will see my dead relatives after, when I depart this body, kind of thing. So we have predictions and explanations at all levels, from very, very, very basic things which we take as automatic through to big picture kind of like existential beliefs and cultural identity. And it's all part of our model, which then turns into specific predictions. But like the person on the surfboard, the world hits back, right? We test our predictions like science. You have a hypothesis, and then you do an experiment, right? And then you see what the results are. And it's like, I think it was Simon who said about action. So, your prediction is that if I move, that it will have this effect. Then you see what the effect is, and you get, because you've got data from the world, feedback, right? When your predictions match the feedback coming from the world, what have you got? Certainty. All right. My model of the world is right. So remember, you're always starting from your model. You've got nothing else to start from. So that's your model of the world is right. So you're reinforcing your model. You're saying, yeah, my model is correct. And remember, you're trying to reduce uncertainty. So you're trying to increase the certainty of your model. But when it's not correct, okay, so I plant the crops I have good seed, the rainfall's good, the soil is good, and my harvest fails, my prediction was wrong. I've got uncertainty. My model of the world was not correct. Right? If I believe that people are fundamentally good, right? That people are born good. And if I'm seeing war all over the place, right, then you might go, well, okay, if I predict that people are fundamentally good, right, and I'm seeing war everywhere, then you probably need a more nuanced view, right? I mean, uncertainty is the difference between your prior beliefs and the data you're getting from the world. And remember, the feedback data you're getting from the world is this. All right. So it's essentially what you're perceiving. Now, and just to show how much our brains hate uncertainty, all right, it can't be a duck and a rabbit. It's one or the other. Our brains do not like ambiguity. All right. Look at this one. I find more interesting. Look at this. And if you stare at this for 10, with this one here, you can normally hold it as either a duck or a rabbit. But this one, 99% of people cannot hold this. It will change within 10 seconds. Yeah, it flips. You can't hold it. It's because your brain is trying to make sense of ambiguous data, and its model is both things can hold down, steps can go that way, or steps can go up, right? So you have both of those models. So it's having to find the best explanation for its sensory data, right? You don't like ambiguity, even at a very, very, very basic level. And then some people would say, but at a higher level, I mean, we develop all, so our brains automatically try to get rid of that uncertainty at this level, but it goes all the way up to our beliefs about the universe, the world, afterlife. We need explanations for this stuff, right? I mean, and so uncertainty goes all the way from the bottom to the top, but it's essentially the same thing. It's trying to find explanations for things. Now, traditional view, and this is the one that we kind of feel that this is how it works, is that perception is a bottom-up process. We experience the world as it is, right? More or less. And we cognate, we think, oh, what's happening? And you're thinking about how should I respond, right? That's the traditional view of cognition. People familiar with this, yeah? Right? You see, cognate and act, right? That's the traditional kind of thing. So we're responding to the world essentially on this, right? Perception is a bottom-up process. We're responding to the world as it is. Does that make sense to people? Yeah, I mean, that's how we think we're doing. We're seeing the world as it really is, yeah? Aren't we? And we're reacting rationally to the world. This is a very, very, very different story that is being told here, right? What it's saying is, no, what we're doing is we're predicting the world. We're making hypotheses about the way the world works because our brains are locked in a skull, right? And based on our models of the world, right, whether it's from what I had for breakfast through to whether or not we were victims of colonialism, right? I mean, at all levels, you have prior expectations about how the world works, and you're predicting your world, right? And so you're seeing your world model, not the world. So you're seeing the world 100% through your world model, and you can't see it anything else, right? And feedback is merely testing. It's just a way of testing your model, right? So the world here, the outside world, is not what's driving stuff. It's your model of the world which is driving stuff, right? And it's not saying that's wrong, right? It's just saying that that's kind of what's happening. But and that has big relevance for our surprise, right? Because surprise is against our predictions as to the way it should be. Now, so uncertainty, you're saying basically your brain is asking, does my model of the world, this is what your brain is asking. Remember, it's all it's receiving is electrical signals, chemical signals, or whatever. From that, it builds this model and it's saying, does my model of the world account for the incoming data? All right? Yes, it does. My predictions about the world match the feedback. There's certainty, nothing needs to be resolved. Right? And this is not just philosophy. This is tested on brain scans, right? That your predictions as to what you're going to see will literally determine what you see, right? Not entirely. And I don't know if any of you have seen that gorilla video, you know, where the gorilla goes across this basketball match. Has anybody seen this? One person. I will show it in the module 2. I've given away the plot line now anyway, so it won't be so exciting. But it's incredible. Look for it on YouTube. Video of gorilla video and basketball. It's incredible. You see what you want to see, basically, right? And we see a lot of stuff in the world, what we want to see. And when we see what we want to see, there's nothing which needs to be resolved because our model is the same as the world. But when there's a prediction error between our prediction and our feedback, when it doesn't match, that is something which needs to be resolved. That's uncertainty. Any comments? Is this making any sense? Anybody here? Okay, right. And if this sounds very theoretical, it shouldn't, right? This is how it actually seems that we work. Right? Let's look at this. And there's 2 ways to resolve a prediction error. And this is where it starts getting really, really, really important, right? And we'll work through some examples. There's 2 ways to resolve a prediction error, right? We don't like uncertainty. Our brain is always trying to resolve uncertainty. You can either learn, which means change the model to fit the world, so we're learning, or we act, which means change the world to fit the model. And let's work through some examples of this. Imagine that your number one, let's look at apples, right? Imagine that your world model was that there are always apples on your kitchen table. And you walk in one morning and there's no apples on your kitchen table, right? Just hypothetical, right? Your world model, there's always apples on my kitchen table. You walk in one morning, there aren't. What can you do? Somebody can just shout if they want.
Go out and buy some apples.
Exactly. You can act. You can change the world to fit. You're changing the world to fit your model. Right? That's what action is. All right? You're changing the world to fit your prediction. All right? So action here is basically prediction fulfillment, expectation fulfillment. All right? Or you can
accept that there's no apples.
Update my model. There are sometimes apples on the table. All right? But you have to resolve it. And so all learning and all action is in the service of prediction error resolution. All right? So we think of learning and action as two separate things, but what this is saying is no, they're the same thing, driven by this, the need to resolve prediction errors, i.e. uncertainty. All right? Let's say, what was I thinking of here with these green footprints? Okay, my model of the world is that climate change, climate crisis is really critical. Right? That's my model. My expectation is that this is something important about the world which needs to change. All right? What do I do? I've got this gap between my expectations that, you know, that of breathing clean air and rainfall and food and whatever. That's my expectations of the world that I expect to live in and want to live in. What do I do? Well, I either have to, and yet the data's coming in of like nobody gives a shit, right? And people are still you know, drilling oil and whatever, right? The data's coming in that, wow, there's a prediction error here between what I expect of the world and the data which is coming in from the world, right? What do I do? Right? I either act to get involved, right? Or I learn and go, well, nobody else seems to care about climate change. Maybe it's not such an issue after all. Right? At some level, you will need to we want to resolve our uncertainty between our models and the world itself. Or, of course, we can just not pay attention to that data, right, and ignore the fact. Right? But again, it's this uncertainty which is happening. And what it was saying is that what the people of active inference, just to show how far this would go, how far we take it, again, for individuals, organizations, societies, doesn't matter. It's the same process. They'd say there's no such thing as a maladaptive or poor action. Right? Nothing. All there is a poor model, because all action is derived from the model. All action is just trying to test your model against the world. So if you think it's okay in your model, not just morally, but somehow at some level, you think it's okay to shoot somebody, All right. There's no point in, I mean, that's kind of what you think it's okay. That's what you'll do, right? You're enacting your model. If you think it's like, so our models of the world are driving all of our action and all of our learning and all of our perception. It's not the world itself. It's what we pay attention to in the world. UN.
Can I interrupt?
Please, yeah. I'm
Well,
delighted if you do.
yes, it's getting very interesting. So now I see with the climate change sample, what if you want to act, you know, but then you don't know how to act because becomes very big and then you get blocked, but you want to act.
Right.
So
Then
it's
you're
still
free.
uncertainty, still in that phase and how to overpass this situation.
Then you're in freeze. Absolutely. And this is probably the worst position to be in, is this freeze situation, right? And what we will be doing in module 2, right, is looking at exactly that, right? I mean, not specifically with climate change, but what we can do about it, right? And how we can act in these things. And I mean, for me, it's the key question, right? Absolutely, the key question is agency, right? Is our role in the situation. Otherwise, there's no option either to ignore it, live with the dissonance, or freeze. I mean, it's awful, right? And as social activists, I know we're all involved in different ways. I think this is the crucial issue of our time. Right? Not a side issue, not one of the issues, but the crucial thing if we want to actually make the world kind of work in a slightly better way, right? How we find our agency in uncertainty, right? We've got 4 hours, right? We're not gonna, but in the next module we will explore some of these things on this. So I'm not trying to put you off, Barbara, by not answering in full. It's just it takes a little bit more time than we've got today. Okay, but this is exactly where we're going, right? UN. The UN, I mean, you know, like we've all seen massive cuts in budgets, right? In, you know, in the whole kind of international development community, or assumptions which we've held for a long time seem to be crumbling, right? Funding is, you know, you know the story, right? Don't need to go on about it. Our assumption was that multilateralism, development, or whatever, that our models of the world, both individually and also organizationally, was that there was some kind of degree of consensus around this, right? There isn't anymore. Well, there is in many quarters, but it's not. But you know, we can all feel it, right? The ground is shifting, right? There's our uncertainty between our model of the world, where it's individual or organizational, and the feedback from the world. No, we're closing USAID, right? The model and the feedback is not linking up. There's uncertainty. What do we do? What can we do using the applet? Well, what can we do? Well, we have to try, we can act, we can try and convince other people that it is important. We can look for alternative funding sources. We can invent new models. We can whatever. I'm not saying any of those are the right ways, but we have the choice to either to act, all right, or to go, yeah, well, maybe multilateralism is useless. Maybe they're right. Maybe it is all a waste of money. Maybe we shouldn't care about the rest of the world, right? But at some level, we have to kind of like, we have to adapt. We adapt either to the world, or we let our experiences of the world adapt to our models, right? And it, again, it's not saying the way our brain's stuck behind in our box, how it makes sense of the world. Okay, that's all I'm trying to say here. And so learning and action are critical. But, and this is we're getting to the point this is really important here. Right, these next two, I'm just looking at time. How am I doing? Yeah, we're getting there, right? But it's a noisy world out there, right? I mean, if you look at it, and we're going to, this is a cornerstone for answering Barbara's question, or trying to get somewhere towards that, and also what we're going to do on Thursday. This is a really important thing. It's a noisy world out there, right? If I challenge you just to look around your room. Just look around your room, just briefly, and you could probably notice a million things which you've never noticed before. You know, the color of a picture, the angle of something. Oh, there's a piece of dust there. Oh, I didn't realize that this book was next to that book. You know, you look at your hand, you could probably, the back of your hand, you could probably notice 1,000, spots or veins or whatever that you've never noticed before. The world is a noisy place, all right? And that's before we think about coffee prices in Colombia or the meaning of life, right? There's a lot going on in the world that we can pay attention to, right? Where our attention can go to, right? All different levels. And where our attention goes to is what we basically get. That becomes our experience of the world, right? That then becomes our model, right? It becomes sorry, here, where's the one? Oh, I don't know. There was one, this becomes our experience, what we're paying attention to, right? What we're paying attention to plus our background model becomes our experience of life, right? And what we're saying here is that, and this becomes really important, is so the feedback we choose is important. And so, for example, you probably all know the cocktail effect. You're in a room, you're at a party or something, you're talking to somebody, engrossing conversation, then you hear your name, Alison, mentioned in the background somewhere. Even though you were completely focused on this, suddenly your attention goes to that. It's amazing. So your brain is constantly scanning the world, right? In ways that we can't possibly imagine, right? Taking in all of this data, and our models themselves are selecting out what's important and what's not important, right? And then say, Alison, I heard your name, right? That's important. This is evolutionary important. This is a threat or an opportunity. Somebody wants to kill me or give me some food, right? I mean, from an evolutionary point of view. So your brain is constantly scanning the environment, and what it pays attention to is what you're going to get. And so what your brain pays attention to is going to go massively towards your experience of uncertainty. All right? And I'm not saying about ignoring things. I'm not saying that, but it's about choosing where your attention goes. So the question would be, do we have time to discuss this very, very briefly? Yeah, very brief. What the questions to think about is when you're feeling uncertain, right? These two things maybe to think about for the next 2 days. What are you paying more attention to? What are you paying more attention to than you should? Sorry. What are you paying more attention to than you? I need to change this. I can't deal with even that. What are you paying attention to? I'm sorry, I'm a bit of a perfectionist on more attention to than you should. I can't leave it even when you understand the mistake. What aren't you paying attention to? What are you paying attention? I'm going to give up on this. Look, sorry. Basically, what are you paying attention to? right? That you really shouldn't be. You know, it's creating uncertainty, which is unhelpful, right? Which is taking away your agency, all right? And what is it that you're not paying attention to that you need to pay attention to more, right? Somewhere where there's this agency, because remember, the uncertainty, it's not about the situation, it's about your relation to the situation. I apologize for this weird wording, but I hope you get the point, what I'm meaning to. Right? It's a noisy world out there, right? And what we pay attention to is going to affect our experience of it and what we think we can do. Right? And we will explore this a little bit more next week. Not next week, in 2 days. But this, in a sense, is the crucial dial here. Or one of the crucial dials is what we pay attention to. Right? This is really the sort of like a leverage point in this whole system, is what data we're using to determine whether or not we have a prediction error. Right? Overall, the implications, just to summarize, and we'll have a few minutes just for conversation. What we're saying is we think of uncertainty as bad, generally. This is a different thing. It's saying no uncertainty or no prediction error between your expectations and the world itself, no possibility for change, for learning or for action. So uncertainty and prediction error is a signal. It's a learning and action signal. In the absence of that, there's nothing to resolve. Everything, automatic response, live on autopilot, don't do anything, don't get engaged, right? It's like there's no conflict between your model of the world and the world yourself. And if you ignore the fact there's war going on, right, or the fact that there's big colonialism or whatever, if you ignore any of this stuff, you're not going to have a prediction error, right? There's nothing to resolve because you're just ignoring it. So prediction errors are really important. If you're working with communities and you want change, right, you have to create a prediction error for them, right? There has to be some uncertainty, because in the absence, if there's not uncertainty, there's nothing to resolve. There's no possibility for action and learning. So if you want behavior change among people you're working with, you have to create a prediction error. Not in a brutal way, but no prediction error, no possibility for change, right? It's artists have it. Artists call it artistic tension. You know, this difference between what you're wanting and what's there. Uncertainty does not exist in the situation itself, right? Uncertainty doesn't exist in the world, right? As an independent thing. It's our perception of uncertainty. Doesn't mean it's not real, but it requires somebody to feel uncertain, right? The situation is not, the uncertainty is not in the situation itself, it's in our reaction to it. And I'm not saying that, and don't take me wrong, I'm not saying that there are not awful situations and we should all feel calm. I'm not saying that, right? I'm just not saying that. I'm talking about our brains, right? The way this works. Your relationship to the situation depends on how you frame it, right? Because this will depend on what you pay attention to, right? So how you frame it, just very, very quickly. I mean, it's a fascinating study. Some of you might have heard of. There was a study done a number of years ago. I'm going to talk quickly here because the time is running out. But this shows how deep this goes, right? There was a study done a number of years ago of chambermaids, hotel workers, right? Who are making the beds and cleaning the rooms or whatever. Hard work, right? Low pay, hard work, insecure, whatever. And there was a lot of people, it was low paid, people eating crap diets and whatever, right? and people were overweight, health problems, and whatever. And they asked people, "Do you do exercise?" Right? And the question and the answer, I need to just turn the light on here. And it was like, "Are you crazy? We don't have time we can't do exercise. We go home in the evening exhausted. All right, you know, all we want to do is sit down and whatever." Fair enough. What they did was they half of the people, half of the study group, they framed it that actually your work putting the bed sheets on is like rowing machines or whatever, and you're hoovering and you're doing this, that you are already getting more than the recommended exercise, right? By you know, recommended health service exercise. You're already getting more than that. You don't need to change anything else about your lifestyle, and you're already going to get fit. You're already doing this exercise, right? The other half they didn't say anything to. Within something like 3 weeks, right, the physiology, the actual bodies of people started changing, losing weight, less blood pressure, less stress, not doing anything apart from the way that they were framing that situation, right? It's incredible about how, you know, somebody asked about the stomach and the heart before. I can't remember who it was. Somebody mentioned about this. It's all related, all of this stuff, and it happens at a level which if we think we can it's all just conscious awareness. It goes much, much, much deeper than this, right? These predictions. So your relationship to the situation depends a lot on how you frame it. And I'm not talking about just positive thinking and superficial, yeah, think everything's good and it will be great. I'm not saying that, right? I'm really not. I'm trying to talk about resourceful responses, not just superficial positive thinking. And what you pay attention to really matters, right? These are kind of like the main takeaways from today. And then on Thursday, we'll get into, okay, this is all great, maybe interesting, right? But what do we do with this, right? How do we turn it from a theoretical sort of like, yeah, kind of interest into something that we can actually live by, right? And actually kind of like, and becomes a source of action as opposed to just an intellectual feast. So, there you go. That's where we are today, and unfortunately, we're almost out of time. But we have 2 or 3 minutes there. If there's any questions, comments, feedback, whatever, please don't waste your time being polite. Just jump in. Nothing? Does it make any sense? Is it helpful? I don't know.
Did just a question regarding, you already provided a couple of resources, some books that you've highlighted and what you shared in the chat. I was wondering if by the next session it would be possible to have a list of recommended books or articles or so on that are going deeper in some of the concepts that you presented. Would be really interesting.
Yeah, I can certainly do that. Yeah. And there's lots of different levels at it, right? You know, some highly technical, some much more somewhat more accessible. Yeah.
Thanks,
Any other comments, questions? And again, sorry, go on, please.
I have a comment on the last point that you made, what we pay attention to.
Yeah.
I think most of the people, they choose to pay attention to things which bring less uncertainty. That's why we all live in a bubble. we just
absolutely.
Yeah, we just read what we want to know, basically, and that's the answer. Yeah, what we pay attention to.
And it's not a trivial point, huh? It's a very fundamental point. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is that it's not always the right thing. Sometimes it's false information what we are reading, but we still prefer to have this one because relates to what we have learned before and what we believe in, and we don't want to really change our perspective and think that it might not be true, and that brings uncertainty.
Yeah, absolutely, and absolutely, I do it. You know, we kind of you know, we like to think it's. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, by the way. Maybe you all are, maybe you're not. Whatever. Not trying to judge here, right? But you know, but we think of all these echo chambers and stuff as being, you know, related to a certain type of people and a certain group, right? But if we're honest with ourselves, we also, well, I shouldn't talk about you. You're probably very. I spend time in my echo chambers and read newspapers and books which I'm interested in. But and from my ivory tower, I'm very happy to accuse everybody else of doing it. But of course, my way is somehow more objective and more thoughtful. Is it? I don't know. I mean, I'm, as you say, Veronica, I, yeah, there's a lot of stuff I don't want to read about. Just it makes me feel uncomfortable, and I prefer to, and I see myself doing it, and I'll do it even when I know that's what I'm doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's deep, huh? Anyway, anything else? Okay, we're coming to it. I hope you enjoyed it. And although it might seem a little bit theoretical, the reason I go into this is that we could just go into tools and techniques and practices and how do we change our mindsets or whatever. But for me, personally and professionally, that's dishonest, right? To do that, I think we have to have the underlying how this stuff works, rather than just going into, oh well, we just change what we pay attention to and everything's fine, or just think in different ways and everything's fine. I think it's really important that we dig into the underlying mechanisms. And remember, this is easily stuff that we could be spending, you know, what we've done in 2 hours, we could be spending 3 or 4 days on just going into this in depth. And I want to emphasize again, this, we're talking about individuals and brains, but these principles are exactly the same for teams, organizations, societies. And one of the things that you see most clearly when you look at political situations is people who are able to close uncertainty among populations, right? Politicians who are able to help people close their uncertainty, at least think they're doing well these days. All right, uncertainty is what's driving it. Okay, Alexander. No, she's not here. No, sure.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Thank you, Ben.
We're done.
Yes, we are on time, so I will wrap it up very quickly. Firstly, thank you all for joining us today. I mean, we are very mindful that it's a very busy time of the year for everyone, whether you're part of UNDP or joining us from other organizations. So thank you for your time. I hope that we will see each other on Thursday for session number 2. But in case you are not able to join us from the logistical point of view, we will be sharing the recording. Yes, so don't worry about that. And for those of you who joined us a bit later today, we will also share the recording so you can catch up on the first theoretical part. And I'm also aware that there were lots of insights that were shared today. And probably everyone also needs a bit of time to process them. So if you have, you know, further comments, questions, there will be an opportunity, of course, to address them on Thursday, or also contact Ben directly. Yes, so please also free to do that. And with that, I'm wishing you a good rest of your day, afternoon, evening, depending where you're joining us from today, and see you on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye, everyone.